Spooky Bear. The house was old, too old. It had seen things, harbored secrets, and let shadows nest in its walls. When the Warren family moved in, they didn't know its history. They only knew it was cheap, secluded, and perfect for a fresh start. Ethan, only 8 years old, was the first to feel it. A presence, cold and watchful, creeping through the corners. But children had wild imaginations, didn't they? That first evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Ethan's curiosity pulled him toward the attic. His parents were still busy unpacking, unaware that their son was stepping into a place that had been waiting for him. The attic door was heavier than it looked, groaning as he pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of rotting wood, dust, and something faintly metallic, something that smelled wrong. A single beam of dying sunlight illuminated an old wooden chest, half buried beneath forgotten furniture. Ethan's fingers trembled as he lifted the lid. Inside, nestled among moth-eaten clothes and yellowed papers, sat a teddy bear. At first it looked ordinary, a little old, a little worn. But when Ethan lifted it into the dim light, the details surfaced. Its fur was clumped and discolored, like it had been damp for too long. Its button eyes were glossy black, too big for its head, and they seemed to catch the light strangely, as if they weren't just reflecting. It felt like they were watching. But the worst part was its mouth. Thick, uneven stitches sealed its lips shut. Someone had forced them closed. As Ethan cradled the bear, a wave of cold air slithered through the attic. Something whispered, not loud enough to be heard, but loud enough to be felt. He shivered. Downstairs, his mother called for him. "Ethan, dinner." He hesitated, staring into the bear's button eyes. A strange thought flickered in his mind. "Don't leave me here." Clutching the bear tight, he ran downstairs. Behind him in the attic's deep shadows, the dust stirred on its own. That night, Ethan curled up in bed with the bear tucked under his arm. "What's its name?" Anna asked as she tucked the blankets around him. Ethan blinked at the bear, his small fingers absently tracing its stitched mouth. "He says his name is Spooky Bear," he murmured. Anna laughed nervously. "He says? Did he tell you?" Ethan's face was strangely blank. "Yes," he said. He whispered it. A shiver crawled down Anna's spine. She turned off the light, closing the door behind her. As she walked down the hallway, she paused, a whisper so faint it could have been the wind. "Now we play forever." Anna's breath hitched. She whipped around. Ethan's door was slightly open, though she swore she had closed it. Inside, the darkness shifted. Anna woke in the middle of the night, heart racing. A noise had wrenched her from sleep. A whisper. She sat up, ears straining. From Ethan's room, low, raspy voices murmured. Not just one, two. One was Ethan. The other was something else. Anna's stomach twisted as she slowly pushed open the door. Ethan lay still in bed, but his lips were moving. And the second voice, it was coming from the bear. A sound like crackling static and wet breaths. She gasped, flipping on the light. The whispering stopped instantly. Ethan didn't stir, but the bear was sitting upright. Anna's hands trembled as she stepped forward. She picked up Spooky Bear, gripping its ragged body. It was cold, too cold, and its button eyes seemed deeper now, as if something was lurking just beneath the surface. The closet door creaked slightly. Anna spun toward it. A shadow moved inside. She slammed it shut, breathing heavily. Tomorrow, she'd get rid of the bear. But that night, as she lay awake, she heard something skitter inside the walls. And from Ethan's room, a low, wet giggle. James was a skeptic. He didn't believe in ghosts or curses. But Spooky Bear was different. It started as small things. Ethan would leave the bear on his nightstand, but in the morning, it would be sitting at the foot of the bed. One evening, James placed the bear on a high shelf, far out of reach. Minutes later, it was on the couch, facing his usual spot. His skin prickled. "Anna, did you move this?" She frowned. "No. Wasn't it upstairs?" They stared at the bear. It stared back. James grabbed it, squeezing it hard. It felt heavier. That night, he woke up gasping. A crushing weight pinned him to the bed. His eyes adjusted to the dark. Spooky Bear was on his chest, its button eyes inches from his face, and its stitched mouth had come undone. A deep, grating giggle filled the room. James threw the bear across the floor, scrambling up. The closet door, which had been shut, was now wide open. Inside, something breathed. Max had always been a good dog, but since Spooky Bear arrived, he had changed. He refused to enter Ethan's room. He would growl, hackles raised, whenever the bear was near. Then, one morning, Max vanished. For 2 days, they searched the property, calling his name. On the third day, Anna found him, in the attic. The stench hit her first, rotting flesh and something sour. Max's body lay in the corner, his fur matted with dried blood. His eyes were missing. But what made Anna stumble back in horror was the thread. Thick, black stitches had been sewn into his wounds, crisscrossing his body. Thread identical to Spooky Bear's. A whisper slid through the air. He was bad. Spooky Bear told me so. She turned, breath caught in her throat. Ethan stood in the doorway smiling. Spooky Bear dangled in his arms, its stitched mouth curling open into a grin. Anna didn't sleep after finding Max's mutilated body in the attic. Something inside her snapped. She stormed into Ethan's room, yanked Spooky Bear from his arms, and marched downstairs. Ethan screamed behind her, his shrill voice raw with panic. "No, don't hurt him!" Anna ignored him. James groggily stepped out of their bedroom. "Anna? What the hell?" She didn't stop. She flung open the front door, stepping into the cold night. The wind howled, slamming tree branches against the house. Her hands shook as she marched toward the fire pit. The bear felt heavier than before. Its fur twitched under her grip. She didn't care. She dumped it into the fire pit, grabbing a can of lighter fluid. The moment the gasoline soaked its fur, the wind stopped. A silence so thick, it felt like the world itself had held its breath. Anna struck a match. A sudden, violent force knocked her backward. The match flew from her fingers. The bear sat untouched in the pit. Anna gasped for breath. Then she saw Ethan stood in the doorway, his face twisted with rage and terror. "You tried to burn him," he shrieked. James rushed past him, grabbing Anna's shoulders. "What the hell are you doing?" "It's evil, James. It killed Max. It's doing something to Ethan." James looked at her like she was insane. Then, a rustling sound. James turned toward the bear. Spooky Bear was no longer in the fire pit. It sat on the porch step, closer. Ethan grinned. "He's still hungry, Mommy." Behind them, the shadows moved. A low, gurgling giggle bubbled from the walls. Anna locked the bedroom door, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Outside, Ethan banged against it. "Let him in! He's hungry!" James sat on the bed, rubbing his temples. "What the hell is happening?" Anna clutched his arm. "It's that thing, James. We have to get rid of it, now!" A hollow thump sounded. They both turned toward the closet. James frowned. That came from inside. Anna froze. The doorknob twisted. Something pushed from the other side. Thump, thump, thump. Anna grabbed James's wrist. "Don't open it." The door burst open. James staggered backward. The closet was empty. Only shadows swirled inside, shifting unnaturally. Then, a black hand shot out from the void. Fingers too long, too sharp. It grabbed James's leg. He screamed. The thing pulled him in. Anna grabbed his arm, yanking with all her strength. But the closet was swallowing him. The shadows rippled, wet and pulsating. James's eyes bulged in terror. "Anna, don't let go." A deep, crunching sound. His torso folded unnaturally. His body snapped in half. Anna screamed. The closet swallowed him whole. The door slammed shut. A whisper. "He was bad, Mommy. Spooky Bear told me so." Anna whirled around. Ethan stood in the doorway holding Spooky Bear. Its button eyes gleamed. Anna collapsed, sobbing. She was alone now. Alone with them. And they were still hungry. Anna ran. She barreled down the hallway, but the walls stretched around her. The house was changing, twisting. The doors vanished, the windows melted into the walls. Ethan's voice echoed from everywhere. "You tried to take him away, but he's part of me now." Anna skidded into the living room. Spooky Bear sat on the couch, waiting. But it wasn't small anymore. Its fur was wet, dripping. Its button eyes were now deep, hollow sockets, and its mouth, oh God, its mouth. The stitches had burst open. Inside, a cavernous void pulsed, filled with rows of jagged teeth. Anna screamed. The bear lunged, its arms elongated, wrapping around her body. She struggled, kicked, thrashed, but the bear crushed her, pulling her in. Her bones snapped like twigs. The last thing she saw was Ethan smiling. The last thing she heard was, "Now we can play forever, Mommy." Then, darkness. Epilogue. A new family moved into the house. Their little girl, Lily, found something waiting for her in the attic. A teddy bear. It had button eyes, its fur was dark and matted, and its stitched mouth smiled. "Hello, Lily," the bear whispered.